Celtics Talk Podcast is presented by 24autogroup.com, 11 locations across New England.
What's up, everybody? A special edition of the Celtics Talk Podcast, getting you set for tonight's NBA Cup showdown between the Boston Celtics and the undefeated Cleveland Cavaliers. Yes, it all came together. We started thinking about would the Cavs potentially be undefeated going into this matchup like a couple weeks ago. And, well, here it is. 15-0 Cavs atop the Eastern Conference going up against the Celtics, who already had one misstep in the NBA Cup against the now group-leading Hawks, but a chance to get right back in this thing, maybe keep their hopes alive of getting to Vegas. And so just everything that you could want about this matchup has lined up. And, I keep joking about it. I kept saying you circle it, this game you circle once, game you circle twice. This is like a triple underline star smiley face kind of game, and you don't get a lot of these in November. So I love that there's going to be a playoff-like atmosphere inside TD Garden. Now, over on NBCSportsBoston.com, I did a mailbag leading up to this game because not only did we have this Cavs matchup, but on the eve of that, we get news that Kristaps Porzingis has progressed to Phase 2. Or the next phase. I don't even know what phase number it technically is. You'd have to ask the doctors about that. But to the next phase of his recovery, practiced with the G League squad at the Auerbach Center on Monday, and they got immediately recalled, and will continue to ramp up his workload. But typically when you start seeing these steps, it means it's not going to be too long. And so one of the questions that topped the mailbag when I finally ripped it open this week was when we expected to see Kristaps Porzingis out on the floor. And if you guys have been listening to this podcast or listening to our shows, I've been pretty bullish that he's been on a pretty optimistic timeline here. Even when he had surgery in late June, Celtics said 5 to 6 months to get back on the court, which would have put him somewhere between, say, Thanksgiving and Christmas. I think I probably thought it would be closer to late December as we navigated the summer months, but then when the team reconvened in September, and we've now seen a Porzingis both traveling with the team and doing some pretty rigorous pregame workouts, it's left me encouraged that it would maybe be a little bit towards the earlier side of that timeline. I also got a chance to sit down with Porzingis on media day, and I thought his response to my question was pretty telling. At that point there was some buzz like targeting a December return, and I said, so hey, December, this is what we're looking at, and or does it make it any easier that you have such a talented team that if you wanted to take your time, if you wanted to give yourself 2 extra weeks to ramp up, that you could do that? And Porzingis was like, no. When I get the green light, I'll be back out there. So this team has actually been pretty successful when you haven't been out there. What do you attribute that to? How have they been able to stay afloat, even though it's clear when you're out there, there's a different dynamic to what you guys are able to do?
I think it's just the culture that we have as a team. No matter who steps in, it's like we almost lose no steps. No, we're the same team almost, and that's the cool part about this team. A lot of times maybe you don't even see. Or some guys maybe don't even get the chance to show, but when they actually do, boom, everybody's ready, everybody jumps in the game, knows every play, knows everything, and we're just like a cohesive group like that.
Does that make it any easier when you're thinking about coming back? Do you say, I just need to take my time, the most important thing is to be ready in June, or do you just say
for me it's tough because I want to be back out there as soon as possible, and it's more like whenever I get the green light, I'll be out there, and
we're not waiting around. As soon as they tell you, you're gone.
That's it, of course. And but it's good knowing that you have teammates like that have your back, that you can trust that no matter who's going to be out there on the floor is going to give their all, and just we're going to, as I said, lose no steps while whoever is out.
You can tell he's already antsy. He wants to be out there with his Celtics teammates. Guys don't go on the road if they're not getting ready to be back part of the mix. It's usually too frustrating, or you got to engage in more rigorous rehab that you can't do on your own on the road. So I just think all signs point to this thing being I don't want to say because I've not heard inside the organization that there's optimism about, a super early return, but I just feel like he is trending. I thought early December has become sort of the target. We'll see. Maybe it gets quicker. Maybe they get close to the finish line. You need an extra week. They certainly have the luxury of tracking however they need to tackle this. But a nice little encouraging jolt of news before the Celtics play this big game. And, look, if they could really use Kristaps Porzingis out on the court. The other most popular question in the mailbag is, well, wait, are these Cavs for real? And, yeah, they're real and they're spectacular right now because we saw bits and pieces of it in the playoffs last year. There's obvious talent there. You've got Donovan Mitchell providing that sort of veteran presence, the elite player that was nurturing the young core around them. And yet, when I watched the Cavs this season, and I actually kind of love watching them on League Pass, a lot of their games have been close late, and they found a way to win them all. It's been encouraging for them because it hasn't just been Donovan Mitchell. It's been Jared Allen making plays on both ends. It's been Darius Garland hitting a big shot. It's been Evan Mobley just taking the next step in his maturation, and Kenny Atkinson just sort of bringing it was always weird the why JB Bickerstaff didn't work there and the whole dismissal after last season's run to the playoffs, but it's undeniable that Kenny Atkinson is a respected mind in this business and a tireless worker who was going to get the most out of this group, and boy has he. I'm excited for this matchup. I think we know, you can go back even a couple seasons, the Cavs have given the Celtics trouble because of their size and length, because of the talent that they possess. They've always just sort of been, even then they would have great stretches and then consistency would be an issue, or they'd go into a little bit of a funk, or they'd get to the playoff stage and they just weren't ready for it. Feels like they've taken the next step. And look, there's usually a couple steps. As the Celtics know, right? We saw the progress with how it worked with the Jays. You get there and then you get knocked out early and you come back and you make it to the Eastern Conference Finals and you get knocked out, or you make it to the NBA Finals and you get knocked down and you got to kind of fight your way back. But it really feels like it's lining up in Northeast Ohio. And it's really interesting because felt like that team could have gone either way at the end of last season. The whole coach stuff, but then would Donovan Mitchell come back, or would he want to go play somewhere else? And kind of quietly they fixed all those issues and added Atkinson and got locked up Mitchell long term, and now they're healthier. And I'm super interested to see this matchup. I do think that unlike past years, this is going to be a Cavs team that lingers at the top of the East. You start looking at, someone asked in the mailbag, and I probably should have their name handy right now, but one of the questions from Matt Clayman 15 on X was talking about seeding, and would the Celtics be pushing for the 1 seed? Now, look, it's way too early to start thinking about that, but I do start crunching the numbers a little bit, and if the Cavs maintain even a 700 win percentage, so 7 out of every 10 you're winning, which is above average, but really good in the NBA, then combined with a 15-0 start, they're trending towards let's say a 62 win pace. And you start thinking last year, Celtics were dominant and got to 64. Celtics are right now on a similar 64-game trajectory based on their first 13, 14 games here. It's going to be. I think it could be really interesting if both teams maintain high level of plays, if both teams stay healthy. It could come down to some of these head-to-head matchups that decide who exactly emerges as the number 1 seed. Now, is seeding? I can't believe we're talking on November 19th about seeding and whether it's important, but that will come into focus. Like I said, let's table that discussion till February, right? I think we've seen both sides of it. Last year, Celtics got the 1 seed. I'm not sure it mattered. It could have been any seed. The way they were playing, they just ran through the East, but there's certainly a benefit where it lined up right that time. Although there's been years where they've been the 1 seed and we've lamented the fact that they've had to go up against a harder path. So it just all depends on how it all plays out. I will say this: I think Joe Mazzulla admitted after his first season that year when they were jockeying for the top seed, they might have pushed a little too hard, maybe overexerted at the finish line, and I don't know if that contributed at all to their ultimate demise. That more came down to Jason Tatum turning an ankle in Game 7 against the Heat. But I think it just showed that you do have to prioritize health and various factors. And you want to be playing at a high level, and the 1 seed is great, and maybe that gives you a more advantageous path. But it's just so hard now with the play-in to know exactly how it's going to play out. And so I think it just comes down to being ready for that moment more so than chasing a particular seed. All right, let's go through a couple of these other questions that landed in the mailbag. Again, if you can go read the written version, I'm stealing some of those questions for this pod. The one that I really love is Huba WB on X asked, is there any chance or way we could acquire Robert Williams, and what would we have to give up? Before the KP news, and if I could have ignored the Cavs matchup, this would have been the number one question in the mailbag, because it's the number one question in my mind, and it will be no surprise to you, faithful listener, that I've been thinking a lot about Rob as he's finally healthy and back out there and just putting up ridiculous numbers for the Portland Trailblazers. I do love having a little late night league pass team to go watch some of those games. He's been productive in even small bursts of minutes, and really hoping he gets an opportunity either to fully blossom with that squad, or if any contender that maybe outside the Eastern Conference, so I don't have to watch Rob against the Celtics that much, wants to acquire him. I hope that he gets an opportunity to thrive again. The bad news is there really isn't a pathway. So the Celtics are a second apron team. They cannot make a trade that aggregates contracts. So if you had been thinking in years past, you could take, and not that they would even consider this, but like, let's say Al Horford's making $9.5 million, Jaden Springer's making $4 million. You could have combined those to get a player like Rob making $12.5 million, and boom, he's back in green. But one, the Celtics don't have a whole bunch of players that they're willing to move, and two, in order to get someone like a Rob, you'd have to send out more money than coming in without aggregating contracts. And so you're looking at trading someone from your starting five. I don't think the Celtics are going to trade Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Drew Holiday, or Kristaps Porzingis. And as such, there is no pathway to reacquiring Robert Williams this season. This summer, when, like maybe a new owner has to start thinking about the cost of this roster, and the Celtics have to start thinking overall about how to best take this thing into the future, there might be an episode or two about what the Celtics could do or could put together to entice a team for a potential Rob trade. But for the moment, just not possible. And I wish I had better news on that front. But if like I said, I will continue to I hope Rob finds a team that can play him enough minutes to get back to the highest level possible. I hope he gets a chance with a true contender, and then we shall see what happens from there. Let's dive into a couple more. From Instagram, J House Sports said, "Who can stop the Celtics? Who are the biggest threats other than Cleveland?" I just think the East right now, when you look at, and there was another question in here, let me find it, because someone said, Connor Bennett asked, who is the more of a dumpster fire, the Sixers or the Bucks? And I think these questions go hand in hand. I think the East is just getting younger. I think the Celtics' real threats are those young teams that play with speed and can that have some physicality, that can make you uncomfortable a little bit. I start thinking about the Pacers. Pacers and Cleveland are the two teams that jump out. Look, the Knicks, I do think with the benefit of time, will figure some stuff out and will not be an easy team because of their potential, but they've got some, like with Kat and Jalen, they got to figure out some things defensively, even with all the other defensive talent they've got. And so the teams that worry me are the ones that are, have size and can play physical. That's why I'm fascinated by tonight's Cleveland game. I think that they have legitimately established themselves as the team to watch. And you just start thinking back to last year's playoffs. Like, I know it was 5 games, but the Cavs have been healthy. That could have been a trickier series. If the Pacers series wasn't a pure sweep, that could have tipped differently. And so it feels like the old guard, Miami, the Sixers, the Bucks, like they got real issues to figure out. And I think some of those teams are going to look up and go, if they're not really in the mix, there's tougher decisions to make about which way to go. Whereas the younger teams are just gonna kind of like lean into it and play free. I mean, the Pacers and the Cavs offenses have been fantastic. They have the potential to be better defensively. I mean, the Cavs are ahead of the Celtics right now in defensive rating. So yeah, I just think we're seeing a little bit of a shift here. Like it's a younger team's time. Maybe even out west. I still think Denver is going to be in the mix, and I'm eager to see like what's OKC's health by the end of the year, and have they made enough strides to be ready for that stage? They should be ready. It feels like they're on the precipice, but it's going to be interesting to see just like which teams are there at the end.
The Black Friday countdown starts now. Drew Carter here with slam dunk specials from Nissan 24.
Lease a new Nissan Rogue for as little as $199 a month, or lease a new Sentra for as low as $124 a month.
We want to buy your car, and we'll give you top dollar for it. Plus, get 24% off any brake replacement or coolant system services. Score your Black Friday deal before the final buzzer. Shop online at Nissan24auto.com.
Celtics Talk is presented by 24 Auto Group, where now through the end of the year, they are doubling your down payment at all 11 locations throughout southern New England. Go to 24autogroup.com for more info.
Couple more questions in here. Charlie Allen asked, is it me or the Celtics passing up more 2-for-1s lately? It's funny, there have been a couple end-of-quarter things where they've had opportunities and they haven't rushed it, which... I don't know. There's always a balance to be struck. It did feel like there were times even at the start of the year, where I'd be like, man, they're settling 2 bad shots instead of finding like one really good one. And sometimes the math will tell you that's still the right play. And there's nothing wrong with a Jason Tatum or Peyton Pritchard pull up 3, and there's certainly nothing wrong with a Peyton Pritchard heave. But I do think there's a balance there. And sometimes it's just things fizzle with 30 on the clock, and you're not going to rush it with 26 because you're just going to give it back to them with a chance to take it down to 1. So I just think it comes down to time and situation. Definitely saw the Celtics doing a lot more 3-for-2s with 1:05 on the clock, and I think they're aware of that stuff, and they'll be even more dialed in as the playoff gets near. But yeah, it's one of those things that last season certainly felt like it was immediately they would dive into those things. And one other, Dimitri O on Instagram asked, should we be concerned that the C's haven't been able to beat a team over 500? Look, you play the schedule you're given. Certainly the Celtics have tripped up a couple times against the Warriors and the Pacers. We'll see what happens tonight. I don't think it's indicative of a team that I think it's more a reflection of the fact that the East has had a lot of teams under 500, and I do suspect that the Celtics were probably the best team in the league last year against teams over 500, and did a nice job taking care of business of the ones that weren't. But I don't. It's nothing to worry about in November. I think we know the Celtics have the talent. They're going to get healthier when Porzingis returns, and then it just comes down to finding that chemistry, staying healthy, locking in a little bit more defensively. I guess that's the one thing that gnaws at me right now. The Celtics have not been dialed in defensively as a team. A lot of dribble penetration on the perimeter. Now, that happens sometimes when Drew Holiday sits out on Saturday night, but and certainly they have to shore up the points in the paint issue. I'm not worked up about them losing that battle on most nights because they're going to give up that shot versus 3-pointers. Again, it comes down to a math equation. I keep pointing out to people that I think the Bucks were or might still be the best team in terms of points in the paint allowed. And yet, how's that working out for them? So if teams are gouging you from the 3-point line, it doesn't matter. And it's a lot easier for the Celtics to win games when they're hitting threes and the other team is forced to take 2s. So, but you look at it, 76 points in the paint on Saturday night against the Raptors is unacceptable. They've got to get better. They got to get better defensively overall. And I think the playoffs will bring that out, but it wouldn't be the worst to turn it up a little bit in the regular season. All right. I got to go get ready because it's time for Celtics and Cavs. It's going to be a fun day. Me and Tommy Giles are actually going to be over at the Garden as part of our pregame and postgame show. Come hang out with us. While you're waiting, go like, subscribe, check us out on the YouTube page. We'll be back, me and Abby, tonight with the postgame pod, wrapping up whatever happens in this NBA Cup game. Prepare for me to overreact depending on which way this game tips. We'll catch you next time on the Celtics Talk Podcast.